News Talk 930, KLUP, The Loop.
Welcome to WellMed Radio, a service of WellMed Medical Management. WellMed Radio will educate you about health and wellness for seniors and their families throughout Bexar County in Central Texas. During the next hour, your hosts Ron Aaron and Dr. Robin Eickhoff will share information that will help you improve your health and wellness. And now, here's Ron Aaron and Dr. Robin Eickhoff.
Well, indeed, we are here. I'm Ron Aaron. She's Dr. Robin Eickhoff, a WellMed physician. You find Dr. Eickhoff in the WellMed Clinic in the Med Center, graduate of Tulane University College of Medicine, and a former flight surgeon in the United States Air Force. She has done it all when it comes to medicine, from cradle to grave.
Yeah, well, I have done quite a bit, actually.
Yeah.
Delivered a lot of babies.
And now delivering a lot of seniors.
And delivering a lot of seniors. I don't know about delivering them, but maybe in the other direction, not that many.
Now,
that would be bad for business.
One of the great challenges that patients have and that you as a provider have is trying to get enough information on your patient, especially if something goes wrong middle of the night, they end up in an ER. How do you handle that?
Well, you know, at least at WellMed, we have some advantages in that we admit our own patients to the hospital. So we have a hospitalist group that works just for us, that we all have access to the same electronic medical record. So that can be very helpful, obviously, if you have a patient that's in the ER and they need to know what the last set of labs were. The problem is it can be somewhat time-consuming to log in, because in the age of computers and technology and security and the Health Information Patient Protection Act, there's a lot of layers of security you have to go through. And so it can be time consuming just to get to the electronic medical record. But for us at WellMed, that's our advantage, or that's how we're able to handle that.
And if your patient is traveling in another state, another situation where they end up in an ER.
Right. Well, you know, we used to have a little plug-in for the computer that they could give to the ER physician or provider when they were traveling. A care band, which was wonderful. The patients loved it. The doctors loved it. Everybody loved it. Unfortunately, after it was examined, looked at, whatever, it was decided that it was not HIPAA compliant, which is a Medicare rule, and so they all had to be deactivated. Boo.
That's hogwashi.
It is the reality of government medicine.
Corporate medicine.
Yes.
Wow. So guess what? We have a solution.
We have a solution. That's what I've heard.
And a very special guest.
I knew you were going somewhere with that, Ron.
Kimberly Harris with Hasa, who can help us all, Director of Marketing and Business Development, who is very much concerned about patients having access to information across the board when they need medical care. Hi. Thanks for coming in.
Hi. Thank you for having me.
Tell us about Hasa.
Well, Hasa is a nonprofit organization. We're one of 12 in the state of Texas. We're receiving federal and state money, and being supported also by the local hospital systems and whatnot here in San Antonio. And we are trying to sort of solve that problem that you guys are dealing with every day, in having the patient medical records follow the patient. So if they seek care from WellMed, or if they are admitted to a hospital in Austin or Dallas or anywhere else, the doctors will be able to access those records.
How are you doing that?
Well, one doctor's office at a time, but so it is a complicated process. But what we have started with, we've been working over the last year and a half to connect all of the hospital organizations. We have a series of board members and their stakeholders that represent a smattering of the healthcare in San Antonio, from Methodist, Baptist, Christus, UHS, but also from the YMCA, which obviously they don't have medical records, but they represent patients. And then we've also included faith-based organizations, community-based providers of outpatient care. HEB Pharmacy has been a big supporter, Methodist Healthcare Ministries. So, representative of a lot of different types of care in San Antonio.
And you're talking about basic information or a patient's entire medical history?
No, well, I wish it were the entire medical history. We're kind of it's a lot of information for many patients, especially seniors. So what we have done is we're starting from the day that the hospital connects to Hasa. Then, so for example, Baptist has been contributing data to the repository since July of last year. So we'll have everything from then on for that organization. And as new organizations join, we'll have everything from then on. And it's not the entire medical record, but typically it's the important information that physicians need at a moment's notice.
And is there going to be an effort to backfill and capture the other data?
I don't think so. Not right now. It will depend on the organization and what they desire, but it's a very large amount of work for people, and they're really focusing. And if you think about it, particularly labs and radiology and whatnot are not all that necessary to have from 5-6 years ago always. More relevant are the things that happened just recently, within the last 6 months or 3 months or a year.
Now, is this a spin-off part of the Affordable Care Act? Because I know the President talked about a need for electronic medical records.
It is, yes. That's where the original grant funding came from, funneled down through the state and onto the 12 HIEs.
Sound good?
Well, yeah, it does actually. It is a huge undertaking because every physician's office or organization seems to have their own electronic medical record, and these medical records don't talk to each other. So I couldn't electronically send my patient record to a physician that was not part of WellMed and expect them to be able to read it, and for all of the appropriate tests, lab tests, radiology, to go to the right areas. So what I'm interested in, of course, as a provider, I think this is, potentially enormously helpful, is is all this information having to be entered manually?
No, fortunately.
Okay, thank goodness. Because that's kind of a stopper right there. If you've got to take a staff to enter all of this information manually, that's not going to happen.
I saw this happening. As many of our WellMed Radio listeners know, we have my wife and I are certainly taking care of 2 challenges, now 3 twins and a 20-month-old baby girl. And our pediatrician, shout out to Dr. Michael Ozer and his staff, recently converted to electronic medical records, and it took them weeks and weeks and weeks to take all those 80 trillion files and put them into an electronic form. They had signs in the office, please bear with us, I'm sorry, things are going a little slower than we like.
Every last page has to be scanned in from the hard copy, and then it becomes an electronic copy. So at my office, we're not fully, we are on electronic medical record, but we are not paperless yet. All of those notes that I do will be printed off and put into a hard copy chart. We will go paperless by the end of the year. So we will be going through that lovely challenge, and all of our medical records staff will be brushed up on scanning, and then once that piece of paper has been scanned, it's got to be put into the right part of the electronic medical record.
And the right patient.
And the correct, that would be
Gee,
probably
Mr.
the
Jones,
first priority, right?
I see, Mr. Jones, you delivered 3 children last year.
But, here's the beauty of the electronic medical record. Once all that stuff is done, then I think the likelihood of the wrong lab report ending up in the wrong patient will be, the likelihood would be minimal, very, very minimal. It does happen just based on lab error, or not lab error, but human error. When I go through my records, sometimes I'll look at a lab, or I'll look at an x-ray and I'll think, well, who the heck ordered that? Or what's that doing there? And then I'll look up on the name, and it's a different Rodriguez, or it's a different Garcia, or it's it's the wrong patient. And so we take it out and we get it in the right. But how many of those get missed?
Now, does this deal with the handwriting issue that a lot of physicians struggle with?
Yes, it absolutely does. So
I don't know how I never see you write anything. So.
No, I'm a crazy typer. I can type probably about 60, 70 words a minute. That's the best class I ever had in high school, by the way, typing. And that was before we had electronic keyboards. This was,
right.
I'm old enough that I actually had to push down on the those
Return.
old typewriter, and manually return it. But yeah, so it does, and that's one of the beauties as well, is that you can you either type or you can click yes, no type of things on the electronic medical record. And so there is no question as to what's been written down, and it's not based on somebody's ability to write or not write.
Well, my dad was a pharmacist for a whole lot of years back in the 1930s, 40s, 50s, 60s, etc., and he had to decipher handwriting from physicians on prescriptions, which was an amazing feat. He could have been in the Hall of Fame for handwriting analysis.
So a question that I have then is, with the system that you have, do patients have access to it as well? Are they able to look up their own information with this system?
We definitely want to get to that point. That's in the works. We're going to start with getting the data in, and then we're also right now in development of what we're going to call the My Hasa, which will be a patient-facing portal. So they'll be able to, once that information is aggregated for them, they'll be able to pull off a copy of that
They can log in
and keep it. And I think the beauty of that will be also that, I mean, for myself, I have young kids and older aging parents, and so we can, with their agreement, obviously, we can sort of form one record so that we can all keep track and help. I can keep my vaccinations for my children, plus keep track of my parents' medication. So when I take them to the hospital or to the doctor, I'll have access to that.
But that's down the road.
Down the road, probably towards the end of this year.
That's not very long. That's actually pretty close.
No, it's pretty close, yes. Now, is this a service that will be available countywide to every patient, every physician, every hospital?
So Hasa covers, I mentioned we're one of 12 HIEs in Texas. We have a 22-county region. That kind of includes Bear as well as Fredericksburg, Kerrville, up in that direction, and then Seguin, New Braunfels, that way. So, and actually, if anyone is interested to know a good resource for finding out what HIE covers, it's the HIEtexas.org. It's the THSA website, and it has an interactive map which will tell you who is on that, who's, the HIE for that.
HIE.
I'm sorry, Health Information Exchange.
Cool.
Not to be confused with all the other HIE acronyms.
Right.
Yeah, well, there are 8 million different acronyms for everything. How did you get involved in this?
Well, I used to work in the medical sales, and so I had a knowledge of the physician practices in town, and I didn't love it, to be honest. I wanted to do something that would make a difference. You kind of self-evaluate at an age, and you want to do something that really makes sense. And this is, I'd be in the practices, and it would be the patients were either frustrated that well, that specialist sent me that fax, and they sent it over. Why do you not have it? And the practice would be saying, well, we didn't get it. We didn't have it. We don't have. I know it's probably
there is a black hole somewhere that is filled with things that have been faxed that never arrived.
Same place socks go in the dryer.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Somewhere, somehow. You're listening to WellMed Radio on News Talk 930 KLUP. I'm Ron Aaron, along with our co-host, Dr. Robin Eickhoff. We're talking with Kimberly Harris about a new program across the state of Texas that is trying to put into electronic form patient medical records. Now, from what I understand, were this to happen, I don't have to fill out those forms at every single doctor's office I go to.
That's certainly one benefit to a patient. It sort of streamlines the process, and it also will help to communicate with your physicians, sending them this information when you go from the specialist to the primary care and on, back and forth.
Because I can't remember what year I had my appendix out. It was a long time ago.
It's not that important.
Oh.
No.
From a medical perspective, it's really not that important, no.
No, but it sure would be nice not to have to write the year and the date you had all your surgeries.
So I don't even have to put it down then?
Well, you do, because if you ever have right lower quadrant pain, they'll want to know that it isn't your appendix because you had that out. But, often, I'll just write as a child or, in their 20s. I mean, things like now, if it was last year, that would be an important date to know. Or if it's a hip replacement, a knee replacement, those dates are important simply because we know those tend to run out at about 10 to 15 years. So that would be important. But, when you had your appendix out as a child is not so relevant in terms of dates.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Next question. And I was thinking about this, and we'll get the answer in just a minute. Kimberly, for patients who, as they age, often have a variety of procedures. So patient X may have that hip replacement, may be dealing with some chronic disease, may be dealing with diabetes, may be dealing with things that take them to a bunch of different specialists. Is there a giant computer in the sky somewhere run by you all at Hasa that's going to gather all this information and connect it to that patient? We'll find out in just a minute. You're listening to WellMed Radio on News Talk 930 KLUP. If you are thinking about changing your medical care, if you're Medicare eligible and you don't know a lot about WellMed, well, you can find out. Just call 210-615-WELL, 210-615-WELL. WellMed provides care for Medicare-eligible patients across Bexar County and in a number of other jurisdictions. And one of the reasons, speaking as a WellMed patient, I enjoy going, very little wait time. You go to the office, you sit down, and boom, you're in with your physician after they do you're rolling your eyes, Dr. Eickhoff.
Well,
maybe different at your clinic.
Well, sometimes there's a little bit of a wait.
The sign says if you've been here more than 15 minutes,
yeah.
Speak up.
Yeah, no, it's true. We want to know about that, and we do our very best to remain on time, but sometimes it's a little bit of a struggle. So I'm glad that you've never had to wait, but you also, I'm
a demanding patient.
You are kind of demanding.
Yeah. We would never get along, patient doctor. Wouldn't work.
Oh, it would be just fine. I'd just say no. No, Ron, no. You can't have that. No.
So Dr. Eickhoff, because I'm not one of her patients, is accepting other patients. And if you'd like to become a WellMed patient, just call 210-615-WELL. The other thing I was going to say, Dr. Eickhoff, the beauty of WellMed is you as a physician spend more time with your patients.
Yes, that's absolutely correct. We have...
You're not paid by the piece.
We aren't. We are not paid by the number of people we see in a day. And so, therefore, we can focus on quality of care and not quantity of care. And so that really helps our patients, but also helps keep family members and physicians happy.
And it means that if you get that call in the middle of the night, patient access in the ER, odds are you know who that is.
That's true. And we have 4 providers in our clinic, and for I would say about half the time, even if it's not my patient, I will be familiar with that particular patient's situation because we have a meeting once a week and we talk about patients who are in crisis or patients who are high risk or sicker. And so we all know about them. It really helps, I think, to improve our quality of care.
And according to an independent study, WellMed patients live longer than other Medicare-eligible patients going elsewhere. So, hey, why not go to WellMed? 210-615-WELL. So if you're worried about Big Brother, Kimberly Harris is Big Brother. In her case, Big Sister. We're talking about a program here in the state of Texas and across this country that's a spinoff from the Affordable Care Act, providing electronic medical records for patients, which makes a heck of a lot of sense. And I was asking you a moment ago, Kimberly, by the way, I'm Ron Aaron. Dr. Robin Eickhoff, our co-host, is here as well. Kimberly is with Hasa. They're the ones putting together this electronic medical record system. I was asking you for the patient. Many seniors have multiple issues, multiple conditions, may see a variety of providers. Is there a way in which all their data is collated, collected, and kept in their little electronic file?
Yes, the short answer is yes. Let me explain. So you mentioned the big in the cloud in the sky, and sometimes it kind of makes people nervous to think about where is this information going, what's happening to it, how is it, secured. And I think that's a really important thing to bring up because the more you know about it, the more comfortable you feel.
Well, one concern I would have is insurance companies having access to all that information. God knows they know enough as it is.
Mm-hmm. So I think, and just like you said, they know enough as it is. But the bottom line is this information is all information that the insurance company has access to anyway. That you, in the past...
I'm thinking about life insurance, for example.
Oh,
companies.
Okay. So, I don't think... Well, first of all, I think it's important to say it's a state law that we're not able to sell medical information. So that's important. First off, somebody was thinking far ahead that wouldn't be a good use of this medication or this information. Mm-hmm. And so I think that takes a big load off of people's mind to start with. But I also think that it's not, I have parents, and one of the things when I talk to my parents about what I do, my dad said, well, I'm really just not comfortable with you looking at my information, sitting at work looking at my information. And I said, Dad, I don't just sit looking at people's information all day, right? It's secure, and it's in a role-based kind of situation. So only your physician who has the access.
It's really on a need to know,
mm-hmm.
and so you wouldn't really have access to that not being involved in their health care.
Right, and as you mentioned earlier, it wouldn't fly if it wasn't all HIPAA compliant.
So and here's an interesting thing that and you can tell me if you guys have this, but I think it's pretty much part of the requirement is I know that anytime I access a patient's medical record at, say, St. Luke's Hospital or Methodist, it tracks me. So I sign in. I have my own special login, and then if I pull up a patient and it's not there's no record in the computer of me being that patient's doctor, I actually get a window that says, are you sure you want to access this record, because we don't show you as a physician of record, and if so, why? So it might be one of my partner's patients, and I'm not on the record, but it's one of my partners, and so I will put, it gives you several things, but it's usually, continued patient care. And if I go into that record, and I really don't have a need, it'll track that, and then it's a huge thing. At WellMed, it is, anytime somebody logs in to a computer to look up patient information, if they don't have authorization to be there, or they don't have a reason to be there, they lose their job. I mean, there is no. We had an employee a number of years ago who accessed her aunt's medical record because her aunt called her and said, "I don't know what's going on. I don't understand." And so instead of going through the appropriate channels, she just didn't think about it. She got online. I mean, she was gone within 3 days, and so it's serious business. So
that's good to know.
I suspect that it's tracked as well.
You're exactly right. Yeah. And I think, that it's important for patients to feel like it's not just out there. And when we move forward with the My Hasa solution where patients can see, that will be much more transparent for the patient. But right now, today, a patient has the right to call Hasa and say, well, we're going to have to verify who that patient is. But they can say, I think someone accessed my record. I want to know who has seen it. And so we can provide them with an auditable, trackable document that will say, yes, Dr. So-and-so from this place at this time. And we do not only at the request of the patient, but we do regular audits, daily, weekly, monthly audits of different types to try to catch the people who are abusing the system. We don't want that to happen, and we're not going to be in business if we can't assure patients that their medical records are secure. And just as you said, we take it very seriously. There will be if people abuse the system, they will be off and reported to their organization, sure, and appropriate action will be filed.
Now, one of the challenges that I believe you're going to help with, and this happened to a friend of mine, my friend Craig, was referred by his primary care physician to a cardiologist. He had blood pressure that was kind of spiking, and they were concerned about it, and they ran some tests. They scheduled an appointment. He showed up at the cardiologist, but all the tests and records weren't there. Mm-hmm. And so it was a wasted visit. They had to reschedule.
Yeah, I think everybody as a patient can really identify with that. It's happened to me personally.
Will this new system solve that problem?
It will be certainly one of the solutions that will help that, yes. I think what's going to happen is, let's say you as a physician or a cardiologist or whoever, you send that referral over and they don't get it, or we do have available tools to help them send those referrals as well, above and beyond what we're talking about. But let's say they send it the old-fashioned way by fax and it doesn't show up. Then the physician with access to Hasa can log in and say, well, let me just look at it. And as long as that person, that cardiologist, is a participating member of Hasa, that information will be available for the physician to view and to look at.
But it's still the old garbage in, garbage out. If somebody didn't enter that, it won't be there. So you still have that entry challenge,
but
do
it's
you not?
not manually entered.
It's not, right? And I usually when I start to talk about IT things, people's eyes glaze over. But I will give you just a tad. So these are done with real-time medical. So from a patient's perspective, you go in, you're meeting with your physician, and they're typing in, to their EMR, and the doctor hits save, and off at that point, that's an interface is between that EMR, like eClinical or EMD, and off it goes to Hasa automatically through an HL7 message.
What's an HL7?
I don't know. No, it's
that was a good answer.
It's no.
Thank you, Kimberly.
Man, that's a show.
Yeah.
No, it's just it's an IT term for it's actually the way that it's coded. I think of it as, if you're trying to get a visual image of what it looks like, I think of it as one of those old-fashioned notebooks with the lines on it for 30 lines it has. Each line represents a different piece of medical information. So the first line would be your first name. Second would be last name, and on and on. And as that code, that IT code comes across, it's recognized at the other end as the first name, last name, date of birth. And that's how the two systems talk. Like you said, the old EMRs don't really, you spend all this money and you get all your information electronic, and then it doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't talk to anybody.
So here's my visual, and you can correct me, but it would be maybe like me writing you an email.
You being me?
I'm writing an email to you. Okay, it's got your name on it. It's got whatever. All right, and then I blind copy someone else. I send a copy to someone else. So when I hit the email and send it to you, you're getting all of that. So that would be my EMR is getting all of that. But then there's a copy of that note or of that whatever the information is that the system needs, and that's going to be sent electronically to Hasa.
Yes, that's correct.
Now, is WellMed participating in Hasa now?
No, but we are talking to them, and they are very interested.
Yeah, I don't know a lot of. I don't know anything about
I wasn't
that.
asking
No,
you.
no, I know you were asking her, but I will tell you that I'm going to bet that we will probably, if we're going to do that, not do it until we make the full transition till all of our clinics are on eClinical. eClinical is going to be our new electronic medical record, and we're going clinic by clinic and making that change. And so, we're not working on eClinical right now.
Now, is eClinical compatible with Hasa?
So yeah, they are, but it doesn't matter because we have the technical experts to interface with any EMR. That's the beauty of it.
It's like a virus.
Are you an arm of the CIA?
I am not.
Like a worm.
But I'm sorry, I am not able to divulge that.
Exactly. Or, because I know NSA has a big operation here, National Security Agency, which can interface with everybody, whether you want it or not.
No, different, totally different. And that's actually,
now,
you
would
bring up a
WellMed have
great
to
point.
pay you to be a part of that?
Well, there is a cost to interface, and that's an EMR cost. And then there's a cost to have a subscription. If you, and let's say you decide as WellMed to go all in. And keep in mind, this is a crawl, walk, run proposition. So as you mentioned, there's a lot going on in each of these practices, and some are ready to contribute data and some are not ready to contribute data. So what we'll probably start off doing for WellMed is offering their physicians the ability to look into the data. So they might be able to see Methodist, Baptist, Christus, UHS data, but they wouldn't necessarily have their own data in there. And that's not perfect in our eyes, but as they develop and evolve with their EMR, then we would also want them to interface with Hasa. And at that point, then, it would probably be a subscription cost for them to participate.
Is there a mandate that says practices, hospitals, clinics, at some date certain in the future must participate in these information gathering systems like Hasa?
Well, I wouldn't say a mandate, but I know that there are probably going to be penalties at some point for not doing this.
Because the system only works if everybody gets in.
Right. It's particularly, certain insurance companies talking about, we want this shared. You need to be involved. And physicians know it as meaningful use requirement. So they have to meet certain standards of sharing their data, participating, and whatnot.
Dr. Eickhoff is looking very skeptical.
No, it's, when you work for a large organization like I do, you don't get involved in this as much.
Right.
We get the memo. Here's the memo as to what's going to happen, and here's where you need to show up, and here's when you need to be ready for the computer turnover or whatever.
Right.
So it's not really at our level.
Would this be helpful for you, though?
Oh, well, I think it would be helpful for me. More importantly, it would be very beneficial to the patients. For me to be able to access, cardiologist's record or without me having to have my staff call and get them to fax it over if they didn't do it the first time, then that would be, that's beneficial for everybody. Case in point, I had a patient I saw yesterday that went to the emergency room at a hospital that I don't have access to, and I still don't have the records. And so I'm struggling. So we keep making the phone calls to medical records going, look, we really need these tests because she's not better, and we need to figure out what's going on. And I don't want to have to spend more money, to figure out something you already did. So those are the things that one would hope that you would be able to bypass and not have all those problems. So I would suspect that in the big picture, that this type of thing will pay for itself. I mean, you're a nonprofit, so the subscription cost really would just be going to the maintenance and the upkeep of the system.
Yeah, and I think to your point, we have said that for quite a while, is that if we cannot show physicians and hospitals value, then we won't be around in 10 years. And I think it's going to be easy to show value because just exactly your point, if you can't get those records, you're often likely to repeat those records, which is an additional cost that, or repeat those tests.
Because there's a liability involved there,
She's Kimberly Harris with Hasa. I'm Ron Aaron. Dr. Robin Eickhoff, our co-host, is here on WellMed Radio on News Talk 930 KLUP. You hear this program Saturdays at 5 in the afternoon, but you can hear podcasts of all our WellMed Radio shows. Just go to caregiversos.org and click on podcasts, and you can hear these as well as Caregiver SOS on air, another program that we do aimed at caregivers. So Kimberly Harris, down the road, this ought to be just an ongoing, automatic, everybody's in kind of program, and it should move smoothly, carefully. That's the goal, right?
That is the goal. I think, like I said earlier, it is a crawl, walk, run, and we're trying to meet people where they are. So if your practice or your physician practice that you go to isn't using an EMR, that doesn't mean they can't actually view the data. So they could be able to see what happened at the hospital or at a specialist office that is participating.
Now, can we as patients, because I see the value to this as a patient, can we demand that our clinic, our doctors, our healthcare providers embrace this system? We want you to be part of Hasa.
Yes, I'm not
you
trying
could chain
to
yourself to the clinic. I
was
suppose,
thinking that.
But
I'm not trying to advocate revolt, but I would say that I think that the patients are going to be a driving force in this.
Only if they know about it.
That's right, and I think that they can make a choice now by going to the hospital organizations that are participating, and then and choosing hospital organizations that are participating.
Now, how would they know?
Well, that's a good point. Right now they have, so because we want to be very transparent about the fact that we exist and that your information is flowing, and by the way, patients have a choice. If they don't want their information to go, it doesn't have to. They can decide to opt out, which just means that nothing will come across.
Really?
Or nothing will be viewable, I should say, because the information, if you think about it from the hospital, is like a huge fire hose. You can not pull off one patient record, but you can block it from being viewed. And if a patient doesn't want that information shared, then we can stop that. But like I was going to say, how would you know? We've created flyers and brochures, and we've created stickers, clings that go on the windows at the facilities that are participating. So they're a little bit obnoxious. They're orange, and they say your medical records on the go. Has our website. You can, if you have a smartphone, you can click on that and get the information there. So we are trying to work with the organizations that are participating to let patients know about that, and we're doing radio shows and news programs to make sure that we're announcing, that what we're doing, because we really do. I think it's key that we are transparent to the patients. People fear what they don't understand, and we want them to be very clear.
Well, you're not that old, because the Affordable Care Act just passed a couple of years ago.
That's right. Well, in Hasa, we really just began this version of our endeavor a year and a half ago. So we made progress.
Who is a part of the program here in Bexar County?
So right now, we are working with all of the major stakeholders I mentioned, but specifically Baptist, Methodist, Christus, UHS. We're working with Central Med, the Communicare, which is a part of the STN FQHC.
I don't know what an STN FQHC is, other than it's a code to launch missiles.
That's right. No, it's actually an organization, FQHC, a federally qualified health care. Help me out here.
We have a note just past us. And what does that note say?
It says, ask your doctor if they're a member. Good point. Thank you. You do. You have to ask if they're participating. And it might be helpful for patients to say, I agree with this. I think this is a great idea. And let their physicians know. Have a conversation with your physician.
Well, are doctors resistant to it?
They're hesitant.
I can only tell you, my pediatrician, Dr. Ozer, it was a huge headache for them to do this, but they did it.
And that's it. Well, I think they're worried about taking time away from the patients.
Right.
Yeah. And I think that once that they find out what the system is about and they see it and they can access it, it makes their patient time more valuable.
So what are the exact words a patient should use when I sit down with Dr. Eickhoff or Dr. Ozer or whomever? Should I say, are you a member of Hasa?
Sure.
And they'll say, what is that?
If they say, what is that, then you can pretty much guarantee it's
They're
a
not.
no.
It's
Right.
a no. Yeah. Well, I think.
And can we sick you on them?
I think, yes, you absolutely can stick me on them. I
Cool.
think that we're available at hasatx.org, the website. If the doctor wants more information, we can come out and do a demo. We can talk to them. And they can also asked to sign up for our newsletter so they get more information. You can do that at the website as well.
Do you help them input the data?
No, because they are going to input the data in their own EMR. What we will help them do is build the interface.
Ron, you need to step forward. No one is inputting any data. It's all electronic.
I'm using that as a generic term.
Are you?
I was.
We will work with the provider to get them connected. Absolutely.
But what if they don't have an EMR? I know they're all supposed to.
Yeah, if they don't, then we'll also provide them with the sort of a lookup capability that they could access other people's, like I said, the hospital systems right now.
And your life expectancy for Hasa, is this a forever organization?
Well, I certainly hope so. I think that
once everything's in, it just runs.
It should just run. And I think we're going to sort of turn into like this, the water, SAWS and CPS. I think we're going to be something that people count on to be there when they need us, especially maybe emergency planning or.
Now, I know if my power's out, I got a problem with CPS. I know if my water doesn't come out that pipe at home in my kitchen, I got a SAWS problem. How would I know that Hasa's doing or not doing its job?
Well, I think that's an excellent point. I think the way you're going to know is you're going to need to sign up for Hasa and to be able to have access to that information like you do. Most people log into the computer. Some people use their smartphones. Some people have friends and family that will do that for them.
So I can become a member of Hasa? As
soon as we get that My Hasa set up, that is exactly how you'll do it.
We're not there yet.
Not quite there. By the end of the year, yeah.
Okay.
But right now you can talk to your physician, and your physician will be able to help.
And will that cost me as an individual to be part of My Hasa?
I'll give you the very honest answer. I'm not sure. Right now, we are envisioning it, like I said, being something that, that is offered to everyone. It may be that an employer offers it for their employees. It may be that a hospital or a practice offers it to their patients. To be really honest, I'm not sure.
It's interesting, Dr. Eickhoff. A lot of this in kind of piecemeal fashion has been going on for a long time. There's a lot of information about patients in computers everywhere. And if I understand this correctly, you're going to pull it into one master file.
Can I answer that?
Yeah.
So it's not all going to get pulled into one master file. It's actually pertinent information or pertinent data will be copied to one pertinent file or one file that can be accessed by those who need to access it.
So you, me, Roland, Kimberly, we're all going to have files as part of Hasa.
If that's what your provider and you choose to do, then that's how that would work. But it's not that all the data goes into one place. Wouldn't that be the most ideal thing if we all worked on the exact same, EMR?
Why can't we do that?
Well, because there are different businesses. We're a capitalistic society. It's not a single payer system. It just goes on and on. But if you have a central agency or a central program that will actually talk to all the programs and allow them to have a place, a centralized storage place for the important information, that's huge. That's huge. Now, the only thing that you can't do, which I think hopefully y'all will work on as this becomes more successful, is having access to this if somebody goes out of town, goes out of out of state, for a provider in the emergency room or something to be able to access that information, because that's where it really counts, is in the emergency room.
That's exactly right. And that's the ultimate goal, is once Hasa covers our 22 regions and we've done it well and most of the providers are on, then we're also going to connect to Austin and to Houston and to Dallas.
Now, is this being done in every state?
Many states, not every yet, but there are some states who are further along than Texas is.
What a surprise.
I know, hard to imagine.
Hey.
But I tell you what, though, that's the plan, is to go federal.
Go back to Ohio.
Yeah.
I say that because...
Actually, you mentioned Ohio. They have a very nice HIE.
Of course they do.
You're not helping.
Of course
You're
they
not
do.
helping.
I mention that because Texas has been dragging its heels on a lot of the provisions of the Affordable Care Act. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to get into the politics of it, but that's why we may be a little behind.
It's, possible.
Well, that's okay. So in the end, for the person who's listening, little Roland is sitting at home, our technical director, and he hears this show, and at some point he says, why the hell should I care about all this? Why should people care?
Well, because I think when we're most vulnerable is when we're in an emergency, when we have a diagnosis like cancer or heart disease, and we're spending lots of time in different physicians' offices, from the specialist to the specialist to the specialist to the hospital, or we're taken by ambulance to we have a car wreck, we're unconscious. We can't share our information. We can't say, hey, I'm allergic to latex, right? So this is a way that physicians will be able to know that information, and it's there for you as a safety net as a consumer.
That was the beauty of the WellMed Care Band, which is dead.
It was a great idea.
It was
before
fabulous.
its time.
It was Dr. Rapier who won a lot of awards for it. It was brilliant.
So kind of ongoing with that idea is one of the most common reasons for people to be readmitted to the hospital, which is a huge issue with the accountable care, is due to poor communication between the hospital and the primary care provider. So this would actually help. It wouldn't solve the problem, but I think it would significantly help for a provider to be able to, a patient that just got out of the hospital, to be able to access that hospital record quickly and see, okay, what new medicines have the patient been placed on, what testing was done, so that I can prevent that patient from being readmitted. Now, we already have a system like that in WellMed, so it's helped us out a lot. But you have a system like this, really conceivably, there's no reason why any provider couldn't use that.
But it hasn't helped you with that patient who went to some out-of-the-way hospital that you mentioned earlier that you can't get a record.
It was an ER visit, and unfortunately it was a hospital that we don't use or we don't have a contract with. So they're
holding the records hostage.
Well, I think I don't think they're doing it on purpose. I think it's just an issue of,
Quality
that
care.
Big, huge conglomerate. There's often a 3-day delay from when a patient is seen to when their records everything's done in the medical records department in a hospital. So we're in that 3-day window. I'm not defending them, but it's not a unique thing. So
this will solve that. Hasa will solve that.
Conceivably, it would, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think, people are well-meaning. People want to do the right thing, and they want to do it in a timely fashion. But a lot of times there's just most people. And
she read your lips. Right.
And I think that this is going to help people to just have more time to do the right thing. But I think if you look at the banking system, for example, how often do you pull out your ATM card when you're in Austin or wherever, and you access your bank here? So I mean, it should be the same for medical records, and I think that system was able to transition to this, and I think that medical information will also go the way of that.
But you often pay for those transactions individually.
But think about that. Why couldn't you have a card that you swipe? I mean, it's not any different than that Care Band, though, right?
I had a card like that.
You have a reader. You give it to the ER doctor. He swipes it. He gets your records. I mean, you think but I don't see how that would work if the Care Band was felt not to be HIPAA compliant. I don't know how a credit card looking thing would work. But I think everybody should just be chipped.
And then
why don't we just chip everybody?
I don't think I'd have a problem with that.
I'd be okay with being chipped.
Well, I just like to go on record that if everyone gets a chip, we would like to contribute the information into their...
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yes, there you go. There you go.
Now, I'm just setting back all of people's feelings so far by saying that. No, that's not the goal.
No, people won't get chipped.
Well, we chip our dogs. But
we do chip our dogs.
It doesn't have medical information.
It doesn't, but maybe it should.
Well, I think it could, couldn't it? How much could you put on that little tiny chip?
Oh, my gosh.
A lot.
Yeah, all the important stuff. But then you'd have to update it, and that might be a little
her husband,
more difficult.
Dr. Eickhoff's husband, would know about this because he works in military intelligence. So maybe they're out there chipping people, and we don't know about it.
I don't think so.
I don't even know what to say to that. I hope not. There's a movie in there somewhere, some conspiracy theory.
Well, there's a movie on what Hasa's doing, somebody who cracks the system. Who handles your security?
So we have...
And do you paste your password up next to your computer at work?
Funny story, yeah. We actually have a box with chalk written on there, Hasa passwords and PHI. It's just an empty chalk box, but yes. But no, I mean, we have Medicity, which is a vendor who does the security and the safety. And we're also working with those organizations, Methodist Baptist, who have the security and privacy officers to keep us in check and
Medicity.
in line. That's the HIU vendor.
Huh.
They have a nice footprint in some of the other states that you mentioned that are also doing statewide HIUs.
Go Bucks. You're listening to WellMed Radio on News Talk 930 KLUP. I'm Ron Aaron, talking with Kimberly Harris, who is a font of information on Hasa and the new electronic medical record system that is coming here and elsewhere. Dr. Robin Eickhoff, our co-host, is here as well. We're on News Talk 930 KLUP, Saturdays at 5 p.m. If you or someone you know is a caregiver, and all of us will be at some point, either a caregiver or a care recipient, we have another program I want to tell you about called Caregiver SOS On Air. I have the pleasure of co-hosting that with Carol Zernial, Executive Director of the WellMed Charitable Foundation and a member of the board of the National Council on Aging. That show provides almost everything every caregiver anywhere needs to know, should have access to. It's almost like Hasa when you think about it. Caregiver SOS On Air comes to you Sundays at 6 p.m. on News Talk 930 KLUP. If you want to know more, go to caregiversos.org, and you can listen to all of the podcasts of our shows, and at that website get all kinds of information on caregiving. So I'm sitting here thinking about what we're talking about here with Kimberly Harris, Hasa, program here in Texas and similar programs across the state and in other states, trying to gather electronic medical records on patients and provide some semblance of order to a healthcare delivery system that Dr. Robin Eickhoff, our co-host, you don't have access to all that information yet.
Not yet. But that doesn't mean I won't in the future.
It makes such great sense.
It really does. And I think, when we look back in 10 years, some of us look back in 10 years.
Why didn't we have this?
Well, we're going to look back and think, wow, look how far we've come, and look how much easier it is, and look how much better it is. I mean, we may not be able to say that about everything, but I think in terms of information technology and medical records, I think that's going to have to happen. So it's kind of an exciting time for us.
Kimberly, she said some of us will look back in 10 years because she's questioning my mental acuity in 10 years. But I, too, will look back in 10 years.
Well, I'm just looking forward to the doctors who are in retirement age telling the new doctors, oh, in my day, we had to carry paper back and forth. You don't know how good you have it.
Yeah, that's like the AT&T commercial for portable TV decoders so you can move your TV from room to room. It's a brilliant idea. And that's true. At some point, doctors will say, you don't know how tough it used to be. Back in the old days.
I heard that all the time. Back in the day, I used to be on call for 72 hours straight. And then you go, really? Yeah, I'd hallucinate, and I'd, and you're like, oh.
Exactly.
Yeah, brilliant.
I used to have to write my medical records down on a piece of paper.
So timeline, how long will this take before we're all in that system?
Well, before we're all in, I hope by the end of the year we should to make significant progress. However, we're going now. We're up and running. We're giving access. We did a pilot with some emergency physicians at one of the Methodist ED departments, and I think that they really found the value in having that information at their fingertips. And so we're branching out now, providing the access for those physicians who are interested to pilot that for us.
Oh, I think any physician will see the value, no question about it. Where's the challenge for you?
Well, the challenge for us is all of the individual primary care and specialist offices that we want to connect to. I mean, the information from the hospitals is valuable, but where the value really comes for the patient is having their primary care physicians contributing data, their cardiologist contributing data, and for all of that information to be neatly bundled in, together, so that they don't have to keep separate records from all the different facilities that they go to.
Now, I realize it's probably all wireless, but in theory, what you're envisioning then would be a pipe coming out of every single doctor's office.
That's right, a two-way pipe coming out of every single doctor's office. To put it very, concretely, that's what our goal is, right?
And you're not there yet.
Not quite, no. And I think that's what patients can do is they can, we did some studies and we found that patients are quite a bit ahead of the doctors in this aspect. That they are ready, they want this, they think it already exists.
If they
think
know
it
about
should already exist. And we did some polling and they said this makes sense. Why doesn't this exist? I thought you could already do that. And so just letting your physicians know, because part of that is the physicians wanting to do what the patients want and wanting to provide the care that the patients need. And that so is a good thing to tell your doctor.
So for Dr. Eickhoff's patients, they need to go in and in a very stern voice say,
with a smile,
are we part of Hasa? And your answer is not yet.
Not yet, but now I will also say that at WellMed I think we're unique in the fact that we do have a lot of good communication processes in place for our hospitalists and at our hospitals. It's not perfect, so this would just add to that. If that's something that the WellMed leadership chooses to participate in, I would certainly welcome it with open arms.
So how do you sell this to individual practices, group practices?
Well, I think it sells itself, to be really honest. Once the physician has seen it and they've logged in and they say, I can get my labs and my radiology and my pathology, and I can get all of the patient's demographic information as well as their allergies, and I can get all of that without having to wait 24 hours or 48 hours or a week to have it sent over. That they want to have access to that.
So they should be beating down your door to sign up.
If we could take the barriers away of the time, it's time consuming. You have to have someone who can connect your EMR to Hasa, and you have to have, the resources to train your staff. And it is definitely, it's not without its drawbacks for the physician, but I think that over time they're going to see the value.
For physicians who want more information, they can call you?
Absolutely.
And the number would be?
It is
210.
Yes, 210-918-1357.
210-918-1357. Kimberly Harris, thank you. This was very interesting. Appreciate you coming in.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
For Dr. Robin Eickhoff, I'm Ron Aaron. We'll talk with you again soon, right here on WellMed Radio at News Talk 930 KLUP. How about Saturday at 5 in the afternoon?
You've been enjoying WellMed Radio, an exclusive presentation of WellMed Medical Management. Join us next week for more on your health and well-being. For more information on WellMed or to hear this broadcast again, go to wellmedmedicalgroup.com. We'll see you next week on WellMed Radio.